What's up, y'all? This is Andrew Rochford, host of the Rochford Files on YouTube and also additional live streams on Twitch, twitch.tv/the Rochford Files. So I should have done this video yesterday, but I still think it's this debate between Jackson Hinkle, who hosts The Dive, and Sam Seder, host of the Majority Report, is still an important one to recap some of the important revelations from. Also, know that I'm not a debate pro. I may watch some certain debates, but it's not going to be a big theme of the show. But there is some important things that happened in that debate that uh, people should take notice of, especially pertaining to the way Sam Cedar performed yesterday. So I got a few videos here to show some highlights of what happened. So I'm going to start putting those up on the screen.
Because I have to say, I was a little bit surprised by what you wanted to talk about
Uh-huh.
as a Marxist Leninist, I guess. But because it seems a little bit focused on electoral politics from my experience with folks who refer to themselves as communists. But if that's what you wanted to do, that's fine with me.
The immediate aim of the communists is the same as that of all the other proletarian parties: formation of the proletariat into a class, overthrow of the bourgeois supremacy, conquest of political power by the proletariat. The theoretical conclusions of the communists are in no way based on ideas or principles that have been invented or discovered by this or that would-be universal reformer.
All right, so that was the opening part of the debate. There, Sam Cedar tried to make this bullshit assumption that a communist wouldn't care about electoralism, even though if what's clear to me is electoralism still needs to be at least a small tool to your bag that you use, because that's a way you organize and bring people over further left. And even though, and these people like Cedar, he got it really fucking backwards where they're like 90% into electoralism and only 10% into the direct action and mutual aid aspect of it. But it's not surprising that Sam Cedar would stereotype communists that way because, look, the person that he used to have as a communist as the third wheel on his show, Jamie Peck, she would often make those downplay electoralism in her takes. And especially last year when she was anti force the vote. And in fact, I think she was one of the only communists to make that argument. But the point being, even though Jackson Hinkle just recently made his way to calling himself a communist, he used to identify more exclusively with the Marxist Leninist label. But the point is, that label should not invalidate what someone has to say about what's going on in electoral politics. So now it's time to get to a next video of this debate I got from Matthew Dimitri, one of those good old boutique left trolls. And the thing about him is he just shares videos and helps people rather and with the shitty captions that aren't even, which are really like blown layups.
All right, you've made your assessment that they're getting preferential treatment because they're not being roasted by the establishment. And then you're saying that they're getting money from George Soros
Yes.
in the form of giving it to the Sunrise Movement?
No, Ilhan Omar received direct contributions.
How much from George Soros?
She received, let me pull it up here. She received between George Soros, Andrea Soros, and Alex Soros, she received $2,700, $5,600 in 2020, and then in 2018, $2,700 respectively.
Okay. All right. I didn't realize she had received $2,700 in multiple years. And so you're contending that they sold out for over $2,700 from George Soros.
No, if you listen to anything I just said, I named numerous examples in which the squad has been given preferential treatment. And to just select that one in particular is very disingenuous.
No, well, you said Soros. So I was just asking in terms of the Soros part. You said Soros was number 4, I think.
I mean, there's more I could go on to list, but again, what I want to talk about here, and what you seem to not want to talk about, and I can assume why, is your continued support for the squad, who is going along with the Democratic establishment on all these votes they could be blocking to get concessions in return. And in some cases, they're actually directly supporting anti-progressive measures and bills.
Okay, and I there is no doubt that they have taken votes that I agree that I would disagree with in some instances.
A few or a lot?
I mean, a few.
So as you see right in that clip, that was the first of many instances that Sam Seder took inconsistent, contradictory points. And this interpretation is why the Cedarites are such fucking clowns. Watch Sam Seder make fun of American patriot Jackson Hinkle for saying that Ilhan Omar sold out to George Soros because she took a few grand over multiple years. Come on, really? This is why we can't take any of these parasite squad defenders seriously, because they shouldn't be taking anything from people like fucking George Soros. Not even $5. And you really think it's okay that, oh, that's chump change for them, only $2,700. No big deal. And that's the first of many moments where Sam Seder exposed himself as unprepared for that debate. He was like a student in a class who tried to take a final off of just the memory of his professor's lectures. And you know how I know this is because back when I was in college, I was that type of student. I would rarely ever read my textbooks. The most that ever got used was a math class. And there was some boom and bust to that type of style of learning. There'd be times where I could still kill it on test without doing anything else. But there'd be other times where it's like, ended up with a D because the professor's lectures wasn't enough to get the job done for that moment. And that is clearly what Sam Seder came into the debate with, that type of approach. He just thought he could show up and dismantle Jackson Hinkle, but he had him on the defensive pretty much the whole way. And that's just when he tried to do this debate on his own merits. But if you think that delittling the amount of money, making it less meaningful, well, I got something else to show you that kind of goes against diminishing the impact of those few $1,000. And it's a good logical follow up to it. So this is Robbie Yeager of MSSC Network, and he just exposed that Justice Democrats aren't just taking fucking chump change from people like Soros. Update turns out Organized for Justice 501c4 dark money arm raised just over 1 million in 2019, the latest year available. That means 25% of their funding for that year came from Soros Foundation. So let me pull it up closely. Just know that when Robbie breaks financial news, he doesn't mess with this. So, based on this, does it look like they only take chump change of a few $1,000s? Don't think so. Now let's jump to a later point, analyze some other breakdowns of what developed over the debate. For example, Jackson Hinkle lost connection to his camera. So there was a large portion of that debate where you just had a black screen from him and you could only hear his voice. And Sam Seder went to his typical debate tactics of trying to talk over people to a greater effect, a lot in the way that he tried to do when he debated Breonna Joy Gray last year on Force the Vote. And he failed spectacularly in that moment as well. But since he was the host of the show, he tried to break out his own tactics to try to help him out. Like, for example, Jackson temporarily lost connection to the majority report. But since I watched on his stream, I saw that he never lost uh, the connection from Sam. Then they tried to take a time to bring up a printout of that time where his dad dunked on him for in the replies of a tweet uh, talking on his with trash talk about his parents, and that was a pretty relevant dunk to try to get back on him for that debate. Then what you noticed after that is it eventually became a 3-on-1 handicap match where Matt Leach, his producer, and Emma Vigilin joined in to try to help. And that was sad because they didn't even add anything of substance. They were just essentially regurgitating his useless arguments against a guy. Doesn't matter what you think about Jackson, he has his receipts on just about anything bad that the squad and elected progressives do. And what Sam Seder showed is that he just really does not care all that much about the bad votes, the bad way, the poor strategy on their part when it comes to what they've done, especially since Joe Biden has taken over for just over a year now. And Sam Seder tried to also break out some pointless diversion questions, like trying to get asked about whether he thinks uh, AOC is better than Joe Manchin. But then Jackson did good job of flipping that logic on its head by asking him that same question about Nancy Pelosi compared to Joe Manchin. So that's not even all the issue with Sam Seder because we're about to get into a bit more. So these next two clips I'm going to play actually reveal probably the biggest problem with the Cedarite left and how they really only care about a bit of domestic policy and class interest. So this will be the one uh, clip that came straight from Jackson Hinkle.
Did you criticize them when AOC funneled $160,000 to DCCC corporate Democrats after promising not to?
Actually, first of all, I actually didn't criticize that.
Why not?
Actually, because I'll tell you why. Because I think there's value in doing that. Because I think that what politicians should do, broadly speaking, is go in and try and get legislation that is positive passed.
Don't you also think that given that AOC specifically said that she was not going to donate to them, that's a problem that she then went out and donated to them? And this is before
that. I think people could take issue with that.
And this is before there's even a Democratic primary. So there was going to be progressive challengers like Ava Patsova in Arizona's first district.
I think people could take issue with that.
So why did you not?
We did talk about it.
You just told me you didn't talk about it a minute ago.
No.
Yes, you did. Did you criticize them when AOC funneled $160,000 to DCCC corporate Democrats after promising not to?
Actually, first of all, I actually didn't criticize that.
Why not?
Actually, because I'll tell you why. Because I didn't spend as much time emphasizing it apparently as you want me to, but
you just told me a minute ago you didn't talk about
it. These were many of several moments that brought up a bit of a laugh at me just when I was watching at work yesterday because of how contradictory that Sam Seder gets. He tries to talk about, oh, I've been critical of the squad. But then he said, oh, no, not about that, though. But then it's hard to wonder when he has ever really had any real criticism outside of an offhanded moment where everyone else was already doing it as well. Because the difference is on this part of the left is we're willing to criticize the squad and elected progressives even when that makes us alone and unpopular. And that is definitely something that Jackson Hinkle has gone through over the past year when he has dedicated a lot of his coverage to that. But that isn't all. Oh no, it gets worse. It gets worse than that. And this last clip takes us to probably the biggest point of the problem with the Sam Seder and the boutique left, that it really starts with the way that they really just don't care about the same issues that a real leftist should. So this will be the last clip I share.
For support when she is going to be withholding her support for these bills.
Okay.
What do you mean, okay? What is this okay? You have one of the largest news shows on YouTube for leftist politics, and you refuse to criticize them. You just say, okay, you say, I don't care. What is this? Do you not have any values that you stand upon?
No.
For support when she is going to be withholding her support for these bills.
This was the most pathetic part about Sam Seder yesterday in that debate when Jackson Hinkle tried to press him on the whole, oh, they voted to increase the state funding, 10, 11, 12, 13%. He doesn't give a fuck about that. Then when Jackson brought up the increase of Capitol Police funding, oh, I don't care. That's exactly the problem with Sam Seder, because anytime Jackson brought up instances of where they supported imperialism, they like the Iron Dome funding, which the squad could have stopped, just like the Capitol Police funding, and there were probably a couple other sanction bills. If my memory's a bit fuzzy on that, but they may have also been able to stop a couple sanctions from being passed. I think one of the countries was Cambodia, but the point still stands. It's that these people do not care about imperialism, the state, like the CIA. Sam Seder literally said he did not care about the fact that the squad approved more CIA funding. Just to show you how much these boutique left clowns are unserious about the whole damn thing. And it also makes sense that he would think that way, because you remember, within the past month, Majority Report essentially made a video mocking that uh, revelation that the CIA put funding behind a bread tuber. And then Sam tried to mock the fact that the CIA would even think that people like Jimmy Dore and Max Blumenthal would be important enough to uh, attack. And that's really what their ideology about the state is. It's just mock that to their own best interest. And it also just shows how much of an unserious clown that these people are, because from a strategic standpoint, how the fuck do you expect to get any of this leftist shit done if you're not willing to have the same solidarity for people outside of the United States? Because if there's one thing that's clear, is if you're consistent on state violence, you have to be uh, also have that same energy for when the United States does that outside of the country as well. But these people just show, like Sam Seder show, they have no care for that. That's what happens when you're only concerned about class interest and trying to placate people poorer than you by talking up your support for like Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, just a few class issues that help people domestically. But then at the same time, when it comes for to have the intersectionality with black people, brown people, other people of color, they're often the ones making the argument, oh, it's not politically convenient. They shouldn't waste capital on it. This is why uh, people are being held back from channels like the Revolutionary Blackout Network and several others like that could be part of guiding people in the right direction. And I say Revolutionary Blackout Network because they are the best channel that's out there right now. And what's important is they preach solidarity among like-minded channels, like many of the MSSC networks, the Indian the newly formed Indie News Network. Those are part of the solidarity that we need. Then the one big YouTuber who's pretty supportive of them is Jimmy Dore, even though in spite of some of his recent takes being suspect, he still uh, does seem to support them. And what you'll notice is pretty much everyone who was involved in that General Strike Summit is a good example of the leftist solidarity that could happen if more people weren't being blocked from it, like from boutique leftists like Sam Seder. And to show you, and I'm going to leave you with this video. This is Sam Seder in a nutshell. He used to be work at MSNBC. Then, after he got fired, he had to carve out his own niche. So that's probably why you've seen him try to be just a bit left of the MSNBC. So for this last video, this is him doing a segment when he hosted for a week back in 2020 to cover for Chris Hayes. And just to show you what he does when he's on that network, this is why he's a fucking clown, man. And I'm about to put that video up.
That Russia is once again trying to interfere in our presidential election to help Donald Trump. But the twist today is that the Trump administration is the one that is claiming it. This afternoon, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a statement updating the foreign threat to our elections. The assessment Russia is using a range of measures.
Man, this nigga is so ugly, bro.
Vice President Biden, what it sees as an anti-Russia establishment. Kremlin-linked actors are also seeking to boost President Trump's candidacy on social media and Russian television. Donald Trump's own intelligence is publicly saying that Russia is actively trying to help him and hurt Joe Biden. Trump campaign.
God, that's the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life.
What would Michael Brooks say about that?
I didn't see the clip.
Like, what the hell?
Hold on, guys. I'm dying laughing because I did not see that clip before. I knew he was on MSNBC. This man was on MSNBC and Russia gated.
Yep. But he covered for emoji.
Oh,
this is who he covered for.
Oh,
I call him emoji because he looks like an emoji.
Chris Hayes, yeah.
Look, that's the emoji that does that. That's him. That's what he covered for.
I'm like crying, bro, because like I did not see the clip.
I'm
this
sorry.
Boy went on MSNBC. I told you guys all the shit I would cover if I was on MSNBC. This man Sam Seder went on MSNBC and Russia gated.
Look, I don't care what nobody says. Chris Hayes looks like the transition between Rachel Maddow and Sam Seder. If you did a sliding scale, you would go from Rachel Maddow to Sam Seder, and Chris Hayes will be right smack dab in the middle. I'm just saying.
Guys, that's the guy who calls people right wingers.
Chris Hayes looks like when Sam Seder and Rachel Maddow had a child. Boom, there you go.
Oh, stop. Oh, man.
Put them together. Put them together.
Oh,
there you go.
Man.
That was so funny, dude. I almost want to finish the clip. That shit is so I cannot believe he did that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Sam Seder for you. And he has the audacity to call a guy like Jimmy Dore right wing when he goes out and when he goes to MSNBC, he talks all the fucking State Department talking points. And you want me to believe that he has the standing to call someone like Jimmy Dore a right winger? Come on. I'm sure there's even people who are economically supposedly to the right of Sam Seder, but I would consider them a better authority because they're more anti-imperialist than him as well. So that was the point. That was a good closing point. Had to clown. That was a great way to end. Clown on him for being the State Department puppet when he goes on MSNBC, but you expect him to get taken seriously on the left when he performs like he does in debates like Jackson Hinkle and Brianna Joy Gray, but perform like that. Unfortunately, that should be very revealing. But we know that most of his fans are going to just flat out refuse to change the way they feel for a while.